Hello viewers, thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about the entire home buying process for people who are looking to buy a house. Well, buying a home with all the documentation and legalities can be a very tedious task, which is why we're here to simplify the process for you. I am Kopal from Dwello, and we're doing this webinar in collaboration with the Thane Municipal Corporation, Thane Smart City Limited and Thane. Before we try and understand the entire home buying process, we need to look at it in different phases. And the first and the most important part that you should consider is budgeting. Now, budgeting does not end at deciding one value or the amount that you want your house to be fit in, but has a lot of other factors to talk about. So, whenever you think about buying a house, the first thing you do is plan a home loan option. Now, while you're considering a home loan option, you need to think about the fact that the bank can finance you up to a limit of 70 to 80% of the value of the house. So you need to consider that the 20 to 30% of the amount of the house that you're looking for needs to be financed by your own sources. And that is the down payment which you need to give. So you need to be ready with that fund. Also keep in mind that if you are planning the 20 to 30% down payment value, you also need to have finances to sustain yourself for the next 6 months. So looking at all these aspects, you need to finance yourself. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is to consider the number of rooms that you're looking for and the locality that you're looking for. That could be on the basis of your commute to work or other places like schools and colleges and various other factors. Once you have these things in place, that's when you start looking for houses, and you come across this term called as the sample flat. Now, how do you go about looking at these sample flats and choosing which is the right one for you? There are two things when you would visit a developer. One, the sample flat would be something that is constructed outside the premises of the actual project. Now, this sample flat will be demolished after the real project is constructed. So there's a scope of what you see and what you get. There would be slight difference. But there would also be developers that convert one of the completed flats within the project into a sample flat. So there, the scope of changes that you would see in a sample flat and the real flat, that gets negated. So that is a better option. Also, visiting a sample flat has various benefits. Firstly, a lot of us like lay people, well, we do understand what a floor plan is, but we cannot really put that into picture and imagine what a house would look like. So a sample flat gives you a better idea of the area in the house and how it would look like. Another thing is most sample flats are furnished, so it also gives you an idea about the furnishings and the fixtures that you might have to look at once you move in. So that's another benefit of going to a sample flat. A few things that we need to keep in mind while visiting a sample flat again would be since you schedule multiple visits in a day, you could at the end of the day get confused about which properties you looked at and how they seemed like at the end. So it's important, the ones that you really like, you visit them again, and this time choose a different time slot, because that helps you understand the traffic around or the locality around. And also I think we'd be like so I think that's good about the sample flat. Then yes, a few more visits can be scheduled, wherein you can not only assess what the sample flat is about, but also the nearby localities and what sort of businesses are around, and do they answer your needs, your daily needs. So that's one question you can think about. Also, next we move on to seeing all sorts of sample flats and then selecting which one is for you. A few points that you can keep in mind is that the sort of amenities that are being promised to you, are they in place or are they under the process of being constructed? That's very important, because Many a times the builder can overpromise and not deliver. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. Another thing would be the average cost of maintenance, which is a huge factor, since a lot of times we tend to negate this factor or do not consider it, and get into this phase where we're jazzed by the amenities. But at the end of the day, when the society is, when it's handed over to the society, you tend to pay the maintenance charges for all the fancy amenities. So please keep in mind the maintenance cost factor. Then if the project is nearing completion, you can also look at the fixtures or the things that builder would provide you, say sanitary ware and this thing, the brand name of the fittings. So it helps you assess the quality of the construction. Then in case of completed projects, you could check the interior structure and whether it matches with the floor plan that was promised to you. Then you must also check your home for any structural defaults, cracks, leakages and things like that. In case of incomplete projects, you can also check for the project progress report, and that would help you assess how much completion has been done for the project till date. One really important thing that you can check is your mobile network and your Wi-Fi network whenever you're around the house or in the locality, in the sample flat. Is there a proper network range? This is something we tend to forget or miss out on, but it's very important. And if possible, try to visit the site in all possible seasons, especially monsoons, because you might come across seepage or leakages, and a monsoon season is the only time you can assess that. Also, a lot of builders offer the township process of buying flats. Now if traveling is a major concern to you, I think township is something that you can opt for. And if you're going to, you must make sure that all your daily necessities or needs are answered within that township, and very minimal amount of commute is required within these places. A lot of people are also confused between opting for a main road property or a property that is off the main road. Well, both cases have their own advantages and disadvantages. Opting for a main road property would be really great in terms of connectivity, because it's well connected to major roads. Thereby it also gives you a good public transportation system, and a lot of these areas are also well lit and there's regular police patrolling, so in terms of safety it scores better. The sort of disadvantages a main road property would have is A, lack of privacy, B, then it would be very polluted to live around the main road. So you have to choose what fits your bill the best. Okay, moving on towards safety. A building, in terms of the fire compliance, must comply with the National Building Code 2016, and you must specifically pay attention to all the fire exits and the smart fire alarm systems, if they're in place or not. You must also look out for cracks, drains, leakages, uneven floorings, electrical fittings, gas pipelines. If all of these things are in place, that's a good thing. Also, please take care of if the lifts and the terraces are very well monitored by the camera systems, and in respect to the terraces, if they are locked, that should be in place. So yes, those are some safety measures you can consider. Next thing is amenities, which has been a big sale point from the side of developers. They offer you various amenities and try to lure you in that. But it's very important to understand that there's a certain category of amenities which are important, and you just cannot compromise on them, whereas the rest are very subjective. It depends on the age group of the people living in that flat or that society. So a few important amenities that you must certainly look for include car parking, security services, water supply, elevators, power backup, maintenance, and gas pipelines. While the importance of other amenities like walking track, play area, clubhouses, swimming pools, party halls, it's very subjective. So, yes. Also, while considering amenities, it is very important that you keep in mind the maintenance aspect of it, because like I said previously, the developer may offer unrealistic amenities which seem attractive but become difficult to maintain when the ownership is transferred to the society. So please do remember that aspect. Coming on to the neighborhood of the house that you're planning to buy, here are a few points that help you, assess what sort of locality you want your house to be in. So apart from usually looking around and talking to the security guards about, the crime rate or maybe security measures within the area, I think it's important that you look at crime statistics, and Dwello, for that reason, offers you the crime statistics and all other sort of stats that help you assess on these measures, which are very difficult for a home buyer to go and seek from authorities and get them. So it's all in one place. That's something you would really need to look at. The other thing is that you need to see which is the closest police station to your house or the nearest hospitals, and these things come really handy when in case of emergencies. Also, how far your home is from the nearest fire department also helps you assess, in case of any emergency, how long would an fire engine take to come to your place. So doing these things about and knowing these things about the locality certainly help. And also be very mindful that all your daily needs are met within the locality, so you don't really have to commute very long. That's also a plus point. And of course, public transport. The availability of public transport serves a good purpose, because you really don't want to end up traveling long hours. So yes. Okay, now that you have visited a lot of flats, seen everything, how do you decide what's the best for you? Because when something looks good here, the other thing doesn't look good there. So okay, I'll help you assess how do you make that choice. Well, you can divide your decision into three categories or three factors. Now that would be essential factors, the most important ones, and you really cannot compromise on them, and they include three. First would be pricing, second would be location, and third would be your annual costs. Choose a house that fits well within your budgets. Obviously, do not tend to exceed your financial planning, because that could fall apart bad on you. Second would be location. Now decide your location in terms of the ease of living in that area and the connectivity that you seek to get. So that really helps. And annual costs would include all your maintenance charges, parking charges. Please consider them while deciding which flat you need to buy. We do have a few intermediate factors that you need to look at. The most important one being space allocation. Now, different builders offer different allocation of spaces for different rooms. A few would offer a large living area and smaller bedrooms. The others would offer you a bigger bedroom but smaller living areas. So now that's purely subjective in terms of what you're looking at, what your needs are. So do consider this aspect in the space allocation. And again, consistent availability of electricity, gas, water, these things again come under the intermediate factors that you need to look at. Also, its proximity to important places like your offices, your hospitals, your schools, entertainment zones, and connectivity to them. They form a part of your intermediate factors, and the least important factors, which we believe are the different amenities that the builder offers. That is something it's up to you. What you seem is essential should be there. Others are things that you can really skip looking at. Okay, moving on to the part where you've decided the house and you're looking at financing it. A lot of people opt for the home loan option for financing their homes. So two important things that you need to consider while choosing a home loan are the rate of interest and your tenure. Now, this is purely subjective, but we recommend that you read the terms and conditions minutely mentioned within the documents, and always look for opting a loan that allows you some sort of flexibility in terms of the repayment schedule, because it's been a practice that if you repay the amount very soon, you might also be eligible for some charges. So please read the fine print thoroughly before making a choice. There are things like the processing fee, which ranges between 0.25 to 0.75% of your loan amount. Now, you could go with a home loan that charges you a lesser processing fee, but it might take longer time to process, and vice versa. But then again, it's your personal choice. Then comes the processing time. Processing time is the amount of time required between when you file for a loan application and it gets approved. Now, this could vary between 5 to 10 days, and it could even be faster than that. Now, it really depends on the bank that you opt for. It is observed that public sector banks take longer than the private banks to sanction a loan, but then you have competitive rates in the public banks. So it's again your choice, whatever you prefer. Next would be your credit score. Now, credit score is a very important factor in determining your loan eligibility. It is a calculated intelligence which is curated by tracing an individual's buying, spending, paying and borrowing capacity with respect to their income. Now, something as little as not paying your credit card bill on time can impact your credit score. So the higher the credit score, the easier will be for you to avail a loan. If you don't have a higher credit score, then you should opt for a loan via the NBFCs, or you could say the private banks. And if your score is good, then you could go for competitive rates with the public sector banks. There are a various number of payment plans that are available in the market for you to pay for your home. The first one would be the down payment plan. In this plan, you would pay around about 10 to 15% of the total amount at a go, whereas your second installment will be in a stipulated period of time. And the third and the final installment, which would include the stamp duty and registration charges, etc., would be on the date of possession. So a lot of builders do give you discount on this plan because it's not really linked to the levels of construction, and however, it's not really a good idea if you're not very sure about the developer. The next plan you can consider is the construction link plan, a very popular one, whereas you need to pay a booking amount which is similar to the down payment part, which ranges between 10 to 15%. So you pay that amount. The rest of the amount is paid as and when the building is constructed in different slabs. So when a building completes the first slab, you make the first payment, and so on. So it's a very popular form of payment after the subvention scheme has been dropped out. So, well, yes, that's one payment plan you can opt for. So the next would be a time linked plan. Again, this would involve payment in different parts, but this is not linked to the construction slabs, but in a stipulated time format. Okay, so one part of the payment is done today, the next would be in a 6 month, 6 months. It's decided by the developer, so that's known as the time linked plan. Then you have the flexi payment plan, wherein you pay 50% of the amount today, whereas the rest 50 would be given maybe in certain stipulated time periods, or as and when you receive the possession. It depends on the developer. Okay, now there are a few legalities that you must keep in mind while deciding what home you must buy. First and foremost, RERA registration. In today's date, no developer can really make a building and sell flats without being registered with RERA. So please do check the RERA registration number of the builder. Then you have the approved building plan. Whatever be the construction, every builder has a building plan that is approved by the local authorities or the municipal corporation, and this approval must be in place before the commencement of the building. So you must have a check through that. Then would be the NOC. If the land previously belonged to the collector, then you must go through if the developer has an NOC for the project. Then comes the environment clearance. If the project is under any coastal zone or environment sensitive area, it needs to have an environment clearance from the state environment department. So that's very important. You do not want to invest in a project where your money gets stalled because of these reasons. Next is your commencement certificate. Again, the builder needs to have approval from the local authorities for everything being in place, and he can start construction on that land, so that the construction certificate allows him that power. The next would be an allotment letter. It tells you, okay, this is the flat within this building which is allocated to you, so you must thoroughly check through all the details mentioned on that allocation letter. So next thing would be an agreement to sell. This is given by the seller to the buyer on the basis that today you're giving me a part payment, and I agree to sell this unit to you. Later on, when the sale gets completed, you are given a sale deed. So that's the major difference between the two. And another difference is that the agreement to sell keeps the risk with the seller. Upon taking the sale deed, the risk is transferred to the buyer. Now, what I mean by risk is transferred is that everything and anything that happens to your house during the construction would be borne by the developer till the time it's agreement to sell, and vice versa. Okay. Then you have the occupancy certificate. This is very important as this is a certificate given by the authorities to the developer to state that the house and the building are complete and ready for being occupied. Also, OC received buildings do not really have a GST charge on them, so that's one point maybe you would like to consider. The next is a possession certificate. It is handed over to you by the seller to tell you that okay, now your flat is completely ready and you may now move into it. Do remember to check all your details on the possession certificate as well. Last but not the least, title documents by the builder should be in place. He should have all title documents in original format with him, so you could ask for them if in case you need to know. Okay, once that is done, there is stamp duty and registration charges. Now, stamp duty is a charge that is levied on the documents. Now, the rate of stamp duty depends on the jurisdiction that you fall in. If you plan to buy a house in Thane, your stamp duty would be around 7% of the agreement value of the house, and the registration charges would be 1% of the agreement value or 30,000, whichever is lower. So these are two charges which are very important and something that you just cannot miss out on, right? Upon possession, it is important that you obtain a commencement certificate if your project was under construction when you bought it, and if your project has been completed when you're buying it, then do or ask for an occupancy certificate to just verify the status. Also, these certificates, like I said, certify that the building is ready to be occupied. And yes, please do consider these points when you're on the possession stage. After you move in, there are a set of charges that you need to keep in mind. First being the maintenance charges. Now, there is no law that states, okay, X amount of charges can be charged for maintenance. It is completely and solely dependent on the builder or on the society when it's formed. And the rate that is prevailing in the vicinity, that is also something that you need to take in account while you're looking to buy a house. So yes. Other sort of charges that you might come across when you buy the house in the society would be property taxes. Now, the property taxes would be apportioned between each member on the basis certified by the local authority. Then you have the water charges, which are apportioned between each member based on the total number of inlets provided in each house. Then your repairs and maintenance are the charges which would be apportioned at a rate fixed by the general body of the society. Lift expenses, no matter who uses it, who doesn't, is divided amongst members in an equal manner. Service charges would be apportioned equally between houses based on the number of flats. Then your parking charges would be apportioned on a rate fixed by the general body of the society that you live in. And then you have the non-agricultural tax, which as per the very recent amendment would be 0.05% of your ready reckoner rate. So yeah, those are some charges that you can consider. And I think we've had a good mix of all points that you can consider while you're looking to buy a house. If you have any further queries, you can always reach out to us. And I think I would wrap up with that. Thank you for joining us.